All right, everybody, welcome to my messy workbench. My name is Tim, and I'm currently doing a video series on upgrading and modding a Thorens TD-160 that I acquired. And I decided to make the series just basically a start to finish on what I'm doing in order to get it up to an operational and an acceptable standard. And during the course of that, I actually put a comment about my 3D printed head shells that I use interchangeably with the TP-60 head shells. I've got a number of them here. There's still some on my decks upstairs. I laid out an array here just to show you some options here. So the original cartridge, I've got four of them, one with a cartridge mounted on this was the one that was mounted on the TD-160 that Mark I that I procured and am actually restoring. The other three here are just spares that I have, and what I've done is I've stripped them of all the lead wires and everything, because what we're doing is a comparison of weights and what is common between them. And what I wanted to do is separate the ones that are the parts that can weigh differently. Like I'm finding that depending on the lead wires you use, you actually get different weights depending on how thick they are, what kind of connectors they have. So that actually impacts the mass of your head shell cartridge combination. So those can vary. Also, the other things that can vary are your connecting screws and bolts and nuts for bolting them into the actual head shell itself. So I have the back row here basically is all 3D printed head shells. So the white one, these four black ones here, actually three. This one is a little different. That was another earlier design that's also on Thingiverse, but it didn't really go anywhere because it's not a very effective bayonet mount on these. You can actually put your own pins in them. I tried that for a while, and I made this one without an arm lifter, thinking that I could easily get them at the time. These parts here, I found out you couldn't, and I basically stalled that one, but I never actually took that model off the Thingiverse because I'm actually seeing some people selling them on eBay right now, and have done their own extruded finger lifters on that, but not a good option. That's why I'm showing it. Because that fitting just does not fit snugly and consistently into the bayonet mount of the TP11 or TP16 tone arms. So I've made a white one here because as you see over here, I've made a number of theme turntables, and I can paint them up or hydro dip them and put cool designs on them. So that one was one that I was making for one of my theme tables, and it's a spare basically right now. And then here are three freshly printed ones. They're actually so freshly printed I haven't even cleaned them up because you have to clean up a little bit of that plastic that sticks out, but it almost doesn't impact the weight of the cartridge at all, but just to tidy them up. And then what I have over here are two of my custom ones that I made for a Canadian table that I've made, and then a Canadian theme table, TD-165, and then this is currently being used on my Thorens TD-165 with my quad system, and it's dressed up as a British system that you may have seen in some of my videos. Love that turntable, and that cartridge, I use it pretty much every day, or that head shell and cartridge combination I use almost every day. I'm changing things around. That's why you see them, see the cartridges, some of the cartridges, some of these are my spares just sitting in drawers and all that stuff, but I also wanted to do a weight comparison of these. So what I did was I hydro dipped these. So I got these designs, actually, Canadian maple leaf and a British sort of flag collage, and then you dip it in, put a hydro dip. You'll have to Google the process rather than me explain it here, but it actually puts a layer on top of the of the plastic, and it was printed out in white like that one, so it would adhere better and look better. And then it actually adds weight to them. So we're going to pull up the weigh scales here, and I'll put this on a steady mount just to go through all the weights of everything here. That was some of the questions that people were asking. What do they weigh in comparison? What is the mass in comparison to the originals? So there's two configurations of the TP-60 that people regularly use. The original configuration, of which I've got 4 showing here, one where it is actually mounted. It becomes really only a bottom mount head shell, and I did a video on how you can convert a TP-60 to a top mount head shell very easily, and that's the 2 down here. I'll show you that in a second. So you can actually see the hardware that's on this, which is really one of these inside this little pocket that's underneath the logo plate on the head shell. And then there's also a, I don't have it here, but there's also a plastic plate that goes on top of it. I did have it. I'll have to pull it out when we do the weighings. Anyway, so that actually adds mass to the head shell. A lot of people, what they do is they remove that plastic plate and the socket here, the M2 socket plate, in order to make it a top-mounted cartridge. So if you peel that back, there's a plastic plate. There's a plastic plate underneath there, and this is just double-sided taped or glued, a light glued on. So those are easy to come off. You don't want to bend them, otherwise once they're bent, you can't unbend them. You'll always see a seam on it. But anyway, so you'll actually find that there is some different weights or masses to the TP6 head shells or TP60 head shells as you go along. I haven't popped this one off, but I've actually had you can see a little bit of a variance in weight between those. And here you see the head shells that I use as top mounts, where you can actually see the 1/2-inch rail, and then you can put your bolts from the top, your bolts in from the top, and then use the nuts on the other side of the cart to cinch them down. And of course, that takes away weight from the head shell. So we'll weigh that. We'll weigh these. We'll weigh each of these in different masses for the configuration. These, when they come off the press, they're kind of shiny PLA plastic, and what I invariably do is I paint them just to give them the same kind of finish as the originals to make them look better. And it also adds mass to the light plastic, the PLA plastic. Now, I have used PLA for these, and there are different types of materials that you can print with. There's simulated wood materials. There's different types of plastics that you can choose from depending on the 3D printers. There's also resin printers. So it's a fluid that actually solidifies and hardens. I do not have one of those printers, so I'm only speaking from the material that I normally print with, and that's PLA. So depending on the 3D printer and the materials you choose for 3D printing, all of this can vary. So the model is independent of basically what materials you're using. So you can use the model to print with resin. You can use it to print with the simulated wood materials. So all of those will have different specific gravities and weights and densities and all that sort of stuff. So this is really only comparing PLA plastic to the magnesium alloy that is making up the head shell, most of the head shell of the TP-60. So there are methods and ways of bringing the mass of these up, and one of them I will show you here. The weigh, basically I make it actually weigh exactly the same as one of these. But it comes with a little bit of a material cost of putting basically blue tack on it on the bottom and in the well that's not being used by the screw to add add mass to the actual PLA plastic. This stuff is common at any Staples store or whatever, and it's like a little putty, and you can use it to add mass to your head shell. So there are options on the table, and the other thing, and that's the reason why I have all these cartridges. So I just went and grabbed a bunch out of a drawer, and ones that a couple of these that I'm swapping carts on. So I just pulled them off of actual working head shells. And and then of course some people use spacers in order to adjust their VTA. They won't use the VTA adjustment on the turntable. They want to adjust the height of the stylus tip using spacers, and of course those come with a mass cost as well. So depending on what you're trying to achieve, whether you're trying to achieve lower mass, which I tend to think is better than the higher mass for these particular arms, it's totally up to you what you're trying to achieve. So let's look at some weights, and I'll put this on a tripod, and then we can you can see it for yourself on my my weigh scale, which I will show you how I calibrate. All right, folks. Now what we're focused on here is is my little digital weigh scale. I got it from China. I think it was like 15 bucks or 12 bucks or something like that from eBay. It took about a month to get here by snail mail. And it's a very effective tool for working on turntables and cartridges and the like. And what I want to do here is just prove that it's actually measuring okay. So what I have here is a test weight. It's a 5-gram test weight from my stylus weigh scale, which is even smaller than this. It doesn't have the weight capacity to handle full-up head shell and cartridges with styluses on them. So I've had to go to this scale. So we'll put the 5-gram weight on it, and look at that. Bang on 5 grams. So can't get any better than that. So we know that our scale is accurate. And the other thing I wanted to do is a benchmark on common items that go onto the head shell that do not change in mass normally. One of them is the Thorens label plate, I guess, that goes on the head shell. So we pop that on here. And then the other one is the Audio Salente bullet that I call it. It's the Thorens TP-60 Headshell adapter, or it's actually a Headshell adapter. So it mates correctly with the tone arm tube of the TP-60 and TP-11 tone arms on Thorens turntables. So you have to have those two. Well, you have to have this one. You don't have to have that one. It's more cosmetic, but it looks much nicer if it's looking like that. That's an original versus that if you have a bunch of bolts on there holding a cartridge on it. So just saying, you can get those on eBay for relatively inexpensive. I think I got mine in Eastern Europe. I think there's a new shopper.ch actually sells them as new old stock from the old Thorens factories. So we'll pop the and this you have to get in Italy. It's Audio Salente, and that mates actually, it's an 8mm diameter that actually mates with the 3D printed head shells that I did. So those two by themselves are both together weigh 2.68 grams. So you want to maybe not note some of these numbers because I'm not going to write them down for you, and that way you can do some of your weight comparisons. So that's a benchmark, and what we'll do is keep this aside because once I put the 3D head shells on it, I will add those so that you know what the combined weight is. Because really, you need those two pieces to make the 3D printed head shell look like a TP-60. So I showed that I had 4, if you include the white one, pre-printed head shells. So I've got the white one. These ones haven't really been cleaned up. They're really straight off the printer. Literally pennies a copy in PLA plastic. And like I mentioned, there's different materials that you can use for 3D printing, which will have different properties. So don't think this is the only option that you have in 3D printing. It's basically what I use. So if you want to go out and experiment and try different materials and try to get a heavier or lighter head shell, that's totally up to you. I'm just showing you, giving you the means here to make that happen. The models are available on thingiverse.com, freely available, so I get nothing for them. I was just appalled at the price people were charging for these kinds of head shells on eBay and online at various hi-fi shops and everything. They want extraordinary amounts of money for them, and it's based on their rarity. Obviously, they don't make the cartridges anymore, or the turntables anymore, or the tone arms anymore that mate with these, and these have long been out of production for years and years and years. So oftentimes, in order to get a spare one or to get a replacement one, you almost have to sacrifice another turntable in order to get these. And that's why I was fed up with the price of these, and that's why I developed the model and put it in everybody's hands to determine whether they want to either go without or have an option available to them, and a very cheap option to go with them if they cannot find a reasonably priced head shell for them. That was my only goal, and so whether you use these or not is really no matter to me. It's just an option for you. Okay, so those ones, I'm just going to pick one, and actually maybe we'll go through a bunch of them just to see if there's differences in weights between them. I use different spools of PLA, so there might be different densities and whatnot. I think these were all made in the same batch, so they'll probably be very similar in weight, in mass or weight. So that one is 4.15 grams. This one is 4.14 grams. This one is 4.12 grams. And this one is 4.33 grams. So obviously a different plastic, different color, so it actually has different properties. So, but that's really neither here nor there. That's not the total mass of the head shell. That's just the mass of, you know, when it's combined. What you want to do is actually have these on it with it. And this is without any treatment or any additional weight or anything like that. So they come in at, so the white one comes in at 7.01 grams. The black one, 6.81. So the black is a little lighter than the white. So if you want a little more mass, you know, print it out in white maybe. But it could be a different roll of PLA plastic that I bought. That one is 6.81, so very close. I think they're the same. And here we have 6.80. So very close. Obviously they came from the same batch, so the weights or masses of those are very similar. Okay, so next we're going to move on to the ones that I actually use. And the reason why I'm doing this is because these ones were treated with hydro dipping. So it's kind of like a paint that it's on a sheet that you put it on water, and then you spray it with an activator, and it actually turns that sheet into a liquid, and then you dip the item into the liquid, and it adheres to the item that you're dipping it into. Hence the term hydro dipping, water dipping. So really interesting process. I urge you to go online and Google it, because you can really do neat things. And that's actually, so this turntable I actually turned back into a normal one, so I don't really use that card anymore. But I used that for probably 2 or 3 years, and it was really good. So what I did was I actually painted it. Well, this one was a white one. I did paint it white just to make sure it was you know, a consistent color, because the plastic, I don't like the plastic look. I like to actually paint them. And then I hydro dipped it. So with this one, with the mass, oh, I guess we timed out here. So let's do this again. Turn it on. Turn it off on without weight on it, so it doesn't compromise the calibration. And then we put all of that on, And so now you're talking 8.27 grams. So that's as I would play it on a turntable without adding any extra weights, which I can do. If you wanted to make up a little more weight, you can actually use some of this putty. You put your screws in, get it all set up correctly, and then you can load that up with a little putty and put it underneath the top plate. And you will never see it, and it will add actually more mass to the head shell. That's why this that's turntable candy right there. A lot of people use that kind of stuff for adding mass to something, and it's non-mag and everything. So the one that I do use a lot, the most, and I use that on my British system, is this one. You can see it was originally, this was painted and then hydro dipped as well. And that's a heavy one. It's 10.16. Oh, that's why. I got to take these off. Because I just pulled that off the turntable, so it actually has the bullet on it. And it has, and oh, we need this one on here. So to get the same weight, oh, I just plunked it on there. Let's pull that off again, get it to 0. Off, zeroize it. Okay, put it back on. And it's around 7.97, very close to 8 grams. So a little bit lighter than the other one. So of course you can put a couple layers of paint on it, and that will actually add some mass to it. So that's the two ones. So there's the one that I actually had set up with the or with a TD-160 is this one. I pulled the cart that was on it off, which was this Audio-Technica cart, and I wanted to load this one up to be the same. So let's have a look at what the actual head shells weigh. So I've got 3 of them here. We'll run them through. So they're all identical. Oops, dropping them, and you can see that they all have the inner guts. So you can see the little M2 slider plate in there, the plastic plates in there. These have not been disassembled. So these are intact, all up TP-60s that I use as spares. And this will give you the actual mass of the, without the head shell wires and without spacers and without the cartridge, what it actually weighs. 9.6 grams. So about 1.6 grams more than a little more than what I use on the other ones. So what was that again? That was 9.59 now. That one is 9.79. So there's a little bit of difference in mass between these. You know, I can probably explain a bit why. 9.56. If you'll look, some of these ones I have are not in the greatest of condition. Let's see if I can find one. You can actually see that some of them oxidize and corrode. I've seen some really, really bad ones where you can see a bit of oxidization here on the there, and then yeah, right in there. See the corrosion? And that's the trouble with this magnesium alloy, is it does corrode and it does oxidize, and you know, it can break down a little bit on you. Mind you, these things are how many years old? So there you go. I'm not gonna weigh this one or the one I got a couple upstairs on other turntables as well. So this one is ready to go, and I've spent a lot of time calibrating that one, so I don't want to muck that one up. So, and then the other option is so I've got this one, which is so I actually mounted it. So I put a little bit of glue on there. It's a crazy glue and before you do that, you got to make sure it's actually absolutely horizontal to the ground, parallel to the ground. And so that way when you put it into the arm tube, the whole thing doesn't pop out when you take it on and off. If it's just pressure fit, you can actually pull these things out. So you have to actually glue it in once you get the position correct. Okay, and it's got, of course, a new plate on it. Some of these plates, depending on where you get them, can actually have different masses. But I'm not going to go there, and I'm certain that some of the ones I have are different weights. maybe we can do that. So here you see how I've loaded that one up with blue tack. And that basically, when I weigh this one, it's the exact same mass as the originals, or very close. 9.56. So there you go. So of course that does not make up a lot of room for the bolts and everything. So what you have to do is you actually have to, get your cartridge set up properly, and then you can, throw blue tack around the area. I don't do this. You can if you're really hungry to get the exact mass of the original head shell. What I normally do is I do something like this, which is, you can do a small combination of that. So this one actually has 2 coats of acrylic paint on it, because again, I do not like the original plastic look. It's kind of shiny and it looks plasticky. What I do is I tend to paint them with an acrylic paint, and it makes them sort of very similar in look to the original head shell. So we'll pop one of these. And what do I do with the plate here? So we'll put the plate on, the bullet on, and that on, and we're at 8 grams. So very similar to the hydro dipping ones in that really it is, a gram and a half sort of less in mass than the original head shell. So, and then of course you still have the option of once you have your cartridge set up and everything bolted in place, you can fill that well up and that well and that well with blue tack, and then put the plate over it, and it will be totally non-visible, and you'll get the added mass. So that's what I tend to do if I was going to go for the exact same head shell mass, which I don't. I normally just play it like that, and it's just fine. So anyway, there you go. Those are the numbers. They don't lie. And what I will show you, however, is something even more interesting, is the fact that, yes, there is some variances in the mass of the head shell, but the biggest mass variances are actually in the cartridges themselves. So and also the wiring that you use. So let's just spitball a couple of cartridges here. So that's an Audio-Technica 18N95E, I think it is. So that's 4.98 grams. Here's a Goldring E3, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to obviously take off the stylus gauge, because you don't play it with the stylus gauge on. And that one is 6.82 grams, so right there is 1.8 grams difference. So that more than makes up for the difference of your the 3D printed head shell to the original head shell. Between those two carts. That one's 6.03. That's a Shure M91ED. And here is an Ortofon. I can't find the model number of that one. I haven't really looked hard. So that's 4.99. So that's a cheap, inexpensive cartridge. And, oh yeah, Ortofon 2M Red. Oh, once again, we got to pull the stylus gauge protector off. So that's how you play it, and that's 7.09 grams. So that's 2.1 grams difference between the lightest and the heaviest of the cartridges. And then I also went online and I looked up some common cart weights and masses. If you're into the moving coil cartridges, a Sumiko Blue Point Special EVO 3 is 9 grams. A Denon DL 110 moving coil cartridge is 4.8 grams. That's cartridge and stylus. Shure M97XE, which I have upstairs, is a 6 gram cart and stylus thing. Denon DL 103 is 8.5 grams. So you can get significant mass differences just by the cartridges you're using. So, and then, of course, we add things like Spacers, which are like 1/2 gram for a couple of them. And these are just cheap plastic ones. I've seen metal ones. Metal aren't so great. I prefer plastic because they're non-mag. But anyway, some people use spacers. The wires that you use, the interconnect wires, or the Headshell wires, 0.74 grams for that one. So that's just 4 little wires. That's brand new out of a package. Here's an old set of wires that I pulled off of an old TP-60, 0.38 grams. Keep them all together. Another set that I pulled off of another, 0.34. Here's another set, different type than those, 0.76 grams. And yeah, so there you have it. Oh, and then of course, that plate, when you pull it out, is 0.2 grams. If you, like me, pull those things out so you can top mount your cartridges. And I don't know if I can find the plastic bit, but I think it's a similar mass as that one. Oh, wait, no, found it. Here it is. So here's the plastic cover, 0.12 grams. And it's actually missing a piece, so it'll be a little bit more, not much more. And that's what actually covers that sliding M2 plate. That these actually go together. There's a little bit missing off of that one, but so those combined, when you take an original head shell and pull those parts out, which is that plastic plate and the metal M2 sliding threaded nut plate, makes up 0.32 grams of that head shell assembly. All right, those are the numbers. If you have any questions or whatnot, just use the comments below. I tend to read all my comments and get back to folks if they request a reply. And yeah, that's my 3D head shell. Thank you.